What's going on, everybody? Today I wanted to talk about the 49ers' biggest weakness going into 2025. And I was going back and forth with personnel, position groups, and ultimately I decided that I think the biggest weakness for the 49ers in 2025 could ultimately be Kyle Shanahan's ego. But before we get into it, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, comment what you think the 49ers' biggest weakness is going to be. Follow First and 49ers on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X. Let's get right into it. So welcome back, everybody, to the First and 49ers podcast. Cole McMahon here. We're only a few weeks away from training camp. The rookies start coming in July 14th, I believe, and the veterans are coming in July 22nd. So things are moving fast here. There hasn't been a lot to talk about recently for the 49ers. Nothing has really gone down, which honestly has been a good thing. I think the biggest thing that's happened for the 49ers was Lenore getting arrested a couple weeks ago. But honestly, I don't think that has had really any implications from what I've seen so far. But yeah, I was just kind of pondering things about the 49ers and their season. I was trying to go back and forth of talking about the 49ers weaknesses, the 49ers strengths, and I kind of wanted to hone it down into one category for the 49ers, and it's a little bit of a negative note, but I think it's something worth noting here and something that I've noticed since Kyle Shanahan has been here. And I honestly, I feel like it's been Kyle Shanahan's ego, and I think it's been a recurring weakness for the 49ers since he's been here in 2017. And the biggest thing is just Shanahan, since we've seen him coach for the 49ers, I don't know if you've guys seen it or not, but he doesn't seem like he tries to shift. He doesn't seem like he tries to adapt or change his philosophy with the football team, with the Niners. And that's the thing. That's the thing I feel like I've seen since he's been a coach here, and every single season I'm like, all right, maybe he'll change his philosophy a little bit. Maybe he'll let down his ego. We all know Shanahan has a huge ego. Kyle doesn't like to relinquish his duties of play calling. We have an OC now, but he's not the play caller. Shanahan, in a sense, is I don't want to say a glorified play caller, a glorified offensive coordinator. He's not. He is the 49ers head coach. And I was listening to something the other day. I think it was like the 3 and Out podcast, where if the 49ers were ever to fire Shanahan, he'd be scooped up in a second. He'd be the hottest commodity on the market. And Shanahan is a good coach. I think he is a better offensive mind. He's not a coach like, I feel like Dan Campbell's a great coach. He's a great players coach, rah-rah kind of guy. Shanahan's not like that. Jim Harbaugh, he's a great coach, And Shanahan, I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. And I think the biggest reason why he's not a great coach is because I don't think he's learned from his mistakes in the past. And today, it's Kyle Shanahan's ego / his philosophy that has not changed. It's not adapted. And the biggest thing that I feel like is going to tear down the 49ers, and this goes hand in hand with Kyle Shanahan's ego, is his philosophy about the offensive line. We know our offensive line has not been elite for multiple years now. We have Trent Williams, the best left tackle in the league. We have Dominic Pooney, who was a great draft pick last year. But other than that, our offensive line is pretty mediocre, to say the least. And we've got stats here to back it up a little bit, but when it comes down to offensive line, Kyle Shanahan has multiple times kind of downplayed the importance of the offensive line for the 49ers. He's more focused on the skill position players, the guys that get the ball, because he believes that you win games by the guys that have the ball in the hand. Obviously, it makes sense. If you got a George Kittle with the ball in your hand, you're going to win games. You got Brandon Ayuk out there with the ball in his hands, you're going to win games. Christian McCaffrey, but it's not sustainable when it comes to, you hear people all the time say football games are won in the trenches. They're won and lost in the trenches. And I mean, my personal philosophy is offensive line and defensive line are the things that you kind of want to build your team with. And a coach that says it perfectly is the 49ers ex-head coach, Jim Harbaugh. I'm going to bring up the quote the other day he just said. We'll play it here. He's talking about offensive linemen and just how much of a cornerstone they are to his team. This is what Jim Harbaugh said a couple weeks ago about the offensive line.
I say, what about a weapon? What about offensive linemen? We look at as weapons. That group, when we talk about attacking and we talk about attacking on offense, offensive line is the tip of the spear.
He said offensive line is the tip of the spear, and I honestly, personally, I couldn't agree more with Jim Harbaugh saying that. I was looking at some of the PFF ratings for the 49ers offensive line. You know, you got like Jake Brendel, Colt McKivitz. The offensive line isn't as bad as a lot of people have said it is in the past, and I've read a couple articles about it saying they're just average, honestly. They're mediocre, they're average, but they're not elite. Looking at like Colton McKivitz PFF ratings, I thought I wrote it down here. Apparently not. But I mean, for like run blocking, he was around like 76%, I think, 71% efficiency. But when it comes down to, and multiple guys are like this on the offensive line, when it comes to like Jake Brendel, Colton McKivitz, they have one upside of like the run blocking game is really good, but then their pass blocking is really bad. And I'm going to try to pull it up here in a second, if my Wi-Fi will end up working, so apologies for that. But Shanahan seems to not realize that the 49ers need an offensive line, an elite offensive line that I think could win games, could win the big games when it comes down to the playoffs for the 49ers. We really didn't address it at all. I think Connor Colby is the one draft pick we got in the whole draft for our offensive line. The Niners need an offensive tackle, whether you like it or not. Trent Williams is 36, 37 years old. How much longer is he going to be able to play? How healthy is he going to be? It seems like every year he's been injured at least at multiple games. Just when it comes down to the depth of the 49ers offensive line, that's where things get sketchy. The 49ers had an ability to possibly draft Trent Williams' replacement if they, not technically, but if they decided they wanted to trade up for a Will Campbell who went the 4th pick overall to New England, or Kelvin Banks 9th overall to New Orleans with an aging Trent Williams. Instead, we decided to sit back. Obviously it was a defensive heavy draft for the 49ers, drafting Mykel Williams with our 11th pick overall. But this is a Sports Illustrated article by Tom Jensen. This was a year ago. He was asking questions about, or this is what Kyle Shanahan was saying about the offensive line and how he views the players with the balls in their hand, the offensive players with the balls in hand, to be way more important than the offensive line. This is what Shanahan said: if we have a bunch of starting NFL linemen and there's no one who can score points, we're not going to have that good of an offense. And then he goes on to say, Jensen says, for the last five losing teams have had inferior offensive lines, and this is not a coincidence. And he's referring to the Super Bowl. The 49ers, let's look back at their Super Bowls. 2 years ago now. Their offensive line wasn't great. And what happened? A couple blown assignments, particularly in overtime. Well, inside the 10-yard line, 3rd and 4, and whoever decided to miss their assignment had Chris Jones. How do you miss your assignment on Chris Jones? He had a straight shot at Brock Purdy, ended the drive there for the Niners, ended up only getting 3 points on that one. I think it was Colton McKivitz, or it could have been our right guard. I can't remember who it was, but the bottom line is 4 of the last 5 losing teams had inferior offensive line. And if we want to look at teams that have won the Super Bowl recently, let's look at last year, the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles. They call them the Big Four. This Sports Illustrated article by John McMahon talking about just how elite the Eagles' offensive line is. And they're big, bulky dudes. These guys are saying they're the biggest in the league. And the Eagles invest in offensive line. I was reading up on them, they have potentially 13 players, potential offensive linemen that could be on this roster. Obviously, they're not going to hold 14, 15 offensive linemen, but they have that ability to have that many starters on their team. And we had the Big Four last year, obviously, Mailata, Dickerson, Juergens, and Johnson, all with their all-pro nods or Pro Bowls in their backgrounds. And this is what the article says. From left to right, the starters are projected to be Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Juergens, Tyler Steen, and Lane Johnson, with the only adjustment from the league's best O-line during the 2024-25 Super Bowl winning season being a reboot with Steen in for the departed Mekhi Becton, who went off to go to another team. But the Philadelphia Eagles, they seem like they're a great team. They took down the Kansas City Chiefs. The 49ers haven't done that. And how are they able to do it? They had an elite offensive line, able to protect Jalen Hurts for as long as possible. They have a Pro Bowl, potentially Hall of Fame running back on their roster, Saquon Barkley, who ran for a career best 2,000 yards and 13 touchdowns last year. And you can't do that by yourself. You have to have the offensive line. we have Christian McCaffrey. Imagine we had this elite offensive line like the Eagles had. Christian McCaffrey would probably be doing that every year, regardless of him being injured or not, obviously. And I think the offensive line, when you have a quarterback like Brock Purdy, what is Brock Purdy? He's a timing quarterback who relies on his smarts to get the ball out on time, and you can't have all day in the pocket. I mean, especially with the 49ers offensive line, you can't have all day in the pocket. It's going to collapse quickly on him, and he's a quick decision maker when he's playing good. If you have this offensive line to take more stress off of Brock Purdy, he's potentially going to play even better than he has done in his career. Christian McCaffrey have an elite offensive line. He's going to put up numbers like Saquon Barkley. I mean, granted, he's put up great numbers already. We know the 2023 season, Offensive Player of the Year, Christian McCaffrey. Imagine how many more yards or how many more touchdowns he would have had with such an elite offensive line. And Kyle Shanahan, I was just listening to Matt Mayoko today on his podcast talking about the players that the 49ers have signed. Obviously, Luke Farrell, I believe is Luke Farrell his name, our tight end that we signed. Biggest signing we did in the offseason. And the 49ers brought him in to obviously protect the quarterback, to run his blocking assignments. And it kind of sparked something in my head. Is like, oh, I understand. I kind of understand what Shanahan's philosophy is of why he doesn't want to solidify an elite offensive line. It's because he likes to, obviously, the playmakers have the guys with the ball in their hands, and he relies heavily on his wide receivers to block, obviously. Luke Farrell, who's going to be mainly a blocking tight end for the team. We have Kyle Juszczyk, so guys that potentially have an opportunity to get the ball there. That's what Shanahan wants on his team. He has those players as the big guys to be blocking for as an extension of the offensive line, essentially. So if he can just work with a decent offensive line that's not going to be like the Philadelphia Eagles, but kind of gets the job done, obviously, he doesn't have to worry about them so much because of these skill players that are able to block so good for the team. And it just kind of, I don't know why I didn't completely realize it at first in the beginning I just wasn't obvious to me. It's like, oh, this is what Shanahan does. He relies on his fullbacks or his tight ends, his receivers. Obviously, we know that from the past to be his leading blockers. But I mean, has it won the 49ers a Super Bowl yet? It hasn't. And so just again, Shanahan's ego, if it hasn't worked yet, he continues to do the same thing. It's the definition of insanity, repeating the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. It just doesn't seem like it's worked for the 49ers so far. And I think maybe Shanahan should potentially let down his ego or just change his philosophy a bit to creating a big stacked offensive line like the Philadelphia Eagles, because we have the good enough players to do that. A great offensive line is going to accelerate, is going to bring up the other players on the team. They're going to make them look better than they even are sometimes at points. But when you have a Christian McCaffrey and a George Kittle, those Hall of Fame careers are going to get excelled even more. And so that's why I believe Shanahan needs to change his offensive line philosophy. And Jensen in the Sports Illustrated article also pointed out the lack of balance that the 49ers offensive line has. Obviously, they're a run-heavy team. They're run-heavy on the left side because of Trent Williams. You can't really do that on the right side of the line. You got Dominic Pooney, best part of the right side of the line, but when you have a center like Jake Brendel who's subpar, and then you got Colt McKivitz who's decent, I mean, you can't expect Christian McCaffrey to go there all the time. And honestly, it seemed like that was the biggest 49ers kryptonite last year. And it was pretty obvious, like every time we're going to run not every time, but a lot of the times when the 49ers run the ball, they had the success going the left side of the field. And defenses obviously know that. They obviously know the weaker side is going to be the right side. And it's easy to close up those gaps there with better defenses. And I feel like opposing teams really found that kryptonite for the 49ers last year, and that's kind of what made the 49ers run game seem like at times so obsolete. And yeah, so what does a good O-line do to an offense? And we kind of said it makes the playmakers on the team even better. It excels Brock Purdy. He's got more confidence in his line. He's not worried about getting sacked every time. And it's not only on the offensive line. I did see another stat that Brock Purdy, I think, held the ball longer than almost any quarterback in the league or something like that, or more than usual. He held it for like 3.5 seconds in the pocket at times, and that's not efficient as a quarterback. You got to get it out, 3-step drop. Obviously, that's what the 49ers offense is kind of like, the quick decision making. And Brock Purdy just obviously seemed like he wasn't on his game last year. And if you get back to his 2023 season, I mean, the 49ers are looking good. And once again, like I brought up, the 49ers offensive line failed in the Super Bowl, it seems like, not giving, I mean, just keeping Chris Jones unblocked. I know we all remember that play, and I could play it right here if you guys want to see.
However, watch McKivitz when his play begins does not block Chris Jones and instead is going towards the edge rusher. Again, teams do things differently, and it's possible this wasn't McKivitz's fault. I kind of think it was, though. I think McKivitz is the one who blew this. Again, traditionally speaking, he would be blocking Chris Jones on his play, unless they have some crazy thing, which maybe they do because they are the 49ers.
And here I finally got able to pull up the PFF ratings for some of our offensive line, and it's basically just stats proving that the 49ers line is just average overall. I mean, obviously, we let go of Aaron Banks last year, our left guard, and now we got Ben Barch, who ended up with a strong season at the end of the season, but how efficient is he going to be throughout the entire year? Jake Brendel, his PFF pass block grade, 55.1, and that's ranking 51 out of 64 centers in the NFL. That's just atrocious right there. And Jake Brendel getting blown up all the time, but his run blocking is 71.6. And this is what I'm saying. It's ranking 13 out of the 54, or I think that's supposed to say 64 centers in the league. And then you got McKivitz, who's a mid-tier run blocker at 68.6% according to PFF. And then we got Pooney, who's arguably who is the best offensive lineman outside of Trent Williams on our team. Had a great rookie season. Hopefully he doesn't have a sophomore slump. Like it seemed like Aaron Banks, I thought he was going to be a guy for a little bit, and then he couldn't come back. He couldn't produce like he did I think it was his rookie season. But Pooney had a run blocking of 81.5, and he allowed 85 pressures. I don't think that's completely on him. I think it's because of Jake Brendel a little bit, and a little bit of McKivitz obviously as well. And that was per playerprofiler.com. And then just a lot of the rankings I was looking into, like Sharp Football Analysis, they ranked the 49ers 15th overall for the offensive line. And then once again, like I think it was also PFF ranking the 49ers 22nd overall for their offensive line. So it's a mediocre line. And the 49ers, are they going to be able, is it going to be sustainable? It hasn't been sustainable for them before. I mean, there were so many injuries last year, and if we want to look at the offensive line depth for the 49ers, as of right now, it's looking like our starters, Trent Williams, Ben Barch at left guard, Jake Brendel, Pooney, McKivitz, right tackle. After that, a whole bunch of question marks for the 49ers. I have heard some things from Larry Krueger that I believe it's Austin Pleasance, he said, has looked really good in OTAs and minicamp, and he could be a surprise contender for obviously like a backup spot for Trent Williams. We have Andre Dillard for left tackle. Spencer Burford. We don't know how well he's going to perform. He's decent, obviously. Nick Zakelj, Matt Hennessy, Connor Colby, our draft pick this year. Sebastian Gutierrez, Isaac Alarcon, who's suspended. Zach Johnson, and Drew Moss. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of great depth for the 49ers offensive line. And the 49ers decided once again not to invest their money into it. I think we still have $46 million in cap space for the year. And there has been talks again from Larry Krueger and I believe Grant Cohn talking about an offensive lineman who's on the older side, but he's productive. He gives good production. He's 34 years old and he starts almost every single game. And I think his name was Sure, if I remember correctly. But if the 49ers are able to pick him up, I mean, that's a great offensive line depth right there for the 49ers. But if not, I can really see the 49ers once again having troubles on the offensive line. And with the depth that we have, which is not a lot, it's concerning for the Niners and concerning considering the history of injuries that the Niners have had constantly. So, in conclusion, guys, Shanahan's inability to make a change in his philosophy and just the way he coaches, honestly, as a whole, is going to be the big reason why the 49ers haven't won a Super Bowl yet. And it's potentially the reason why he could end up be Super Bowl-less, if you're not able to make the changes in your career. He started the 49ers 2017, so he's almost 10 years with the 49ers now. We're, 8 years now going into it? And it seems like he's been doing the same thing year in and year out. He's gotten us to the Super Bowl. He hasn't gotten us to the finish line, though, holding the Lombardi Trophy. And I think some of it comes down to luck, obviously. But some of it comes down to the philosophy, the way you coach, the way things happen, and the way you build Super Bowl champion teams. And just like the stats there from the Sports Illustrated, 4 out of the 5 teams that have lost the Super Bowl recently have had the inferior offensive line. And I think if the 49ers are somehow, if Shanahan decides he wants to make that switch one day and make big, bulky guys, the Eagles, I think their average height is like 6'6" on the offensive line. If they could do that, I think magic can happen for the Niners. Shanahan's obviously an offensive genius. Imagine having that offensive line. And you have guys that's a whole nother issue about our weapons this year. Ricky Pearsall, question mark. Jacob Cowing, question mark. Demarcus Robinson, going to get suspended probably. Brandon Ayuk coming off an ACL. I just feel like if you had a solid offensive line, you can work with players who are average, that are, not special teams, players that ball carriers that are average on the team, and that's going to excel them. The offensive line would excel them if you're elite. But if not, things crumble, things break down quickly with the line that's not able to hold up for too long against a defense. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing for the 49ers this year, honestly. He's a great coach, great offensive mind, and I hope things change for the 49ers eventually. Hopefully we get more depth for offensive line. We got to pray for health for the 49ers this year for sure. So that is, I believe, the biggest thing that can spark the whole 49ers trajectory of becoming Super Bowl losers to Super Bowl champions in the end. So let me know, guys, if you agree, if the 49ers' biggest weakness going into 2025 is Kyle Shanahan's ego and the offensive line, obviously. Thanks again for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow my Instagram, TikTok, X at First and 49ers. And thanks again for watching. Go Niners. Stay faithful, baby.